Hi guys, I'm Rachel and welcome back to Auxhart Gardening. Before we get into the tour today, I wanted to say a big thank you to all of you who have supported me on Patreon. I launched just last week and you guys have been overwhelmingly positive in your support for me, and I really appreciate that. So thank you for helping me continue to create all of these free videos on YouTube to reach people and to teach people. And for those of you who haven't seen the Patreon yet, you can check it out below. It helps support me and the channel and me making these videos, and you also can get cool merch. I do have quarterly stickers that are going to come out. I have a community on Discord that you can join, and I also am planning on doing live streams to answer you guys' questions. And for those of you who are new here and just exploring all the pretty garden content, hi and welcome. I am in South Carolina. This is Zone 7B in the upstate, so it is hot and humid here, but that means that we have a pretty good winter growing season as well as a really long summer growing season, and honestly I think it's pretty ideal. But I'm here as a relatively, within the past 5 years, new gardener to talk to directly new gardeners who may be struggling with starting a garden or thinking about starting a garden, and give them the perspective of somebody who started not that long ago. Because I know for some gardeners who have been gardening for many years, there are a lot of little things that you forget that you struggled with. And so in these weekly garden tours that I do, I not only go over how pretty the garden looks, but also the things that aren't working so well and how I'm solving those problems, so that you can kind of hear that and absorb it and help hopefully apply to your own gardens. I've got my basket with me today and I'm going to be pulling lots of produce. So here on the end we have the tomato trellis. These are cattle panel trellises held up with T-posts, and they are incredibly sturdy for these tomatoes, which I've been really enjoying. Also growing with the tomatoes, I have some pole beans, which haven't quite started producing yet because I planted them a little late on purpose to sort of stagger them with my other bean production. And we have all these beautiful tomatoes coming in. I need to come through, since it's the hottest part of the day, and start pulling off my ripe tomatoes. If you didn't know, tomatoes tend to be sweetest if you harvest in the middle of the day, because the plants are kind of feeling the stress of the heat and the sugars are very concentrated in the fruits. I just saw this giant tomato here that's kind of trapped in the trellis. I'm going to try and wiggle it free. Oh, there we go. Look at that beauty. It is a little cracked because it's been raining really inconsistently here, and because it keeps threatening to rain and then not raining. Like, I don't want to be the person who turns on their sprinkler right before it rains, and so my watering has been kind of inconsistent as well. So that's what causes these cracks, but it is still perfectly good. Oh, beautiful tomato. Oh, look at that cute little jumping spider. Hey, buddy. Hi. You're very cute, aren't you? Can I get you to hop away? I need this tomato. Oh, you really like this tomato, don't you? Come on. There we go. I used to be so afraid of spiders, but honestly, jumping spiders are pretty adorable to me these days. All of these are San Marzano tomatoes, and these are going to go in sauce that I'm making this weekend. I also wanted to point out to you guys who've been following me that these onions that I let go to seed, they went to seed and they are still here, still looking like onions down there. I think I'm going to continue to leave them and just kind of watch them go through their growth cycle into their second year and just like see what happens and show you guys, because that's kind of what I like to do, is watch my plants and learn from them. Coming down now the other side of the tomato trellis. This is all my sweet peppers down this way. And in front we have some basils, some of the many that I have scattered throughout my garden. They keep trying to flower, which is what they do in the summer, and that's normal. I've been cutting back super regularly to make pesto and also keep them from really going to flower, because that can change the flavor. But when they get to start looking like this is when I know it's time to make another batch of pesto. And if you've never harvested basil before, you can see how at the base of these leaf splits there are new little leaves coming in. You cut right above that, and then both of these are going to grow up into big stems of their own. You can kind of see how that happened here after I cut right here. And so that's how you cut your basil and keep it multiplying for you. And that's especially good if you have a small space and you're trying to make the most of it. But I'm over here growing like all the basil, and so the thought of doubling it every single time I cut it is a little intimidating to me. But I am trying to push my limits as far as like how much pesto I can put up this winter, because I love it so much. My partner and I will make pizza usually from scratch, and pesto pizza with bacon and feta is like one of my favorite things. All right, so we are gonna start walking through here, and I think I need to pull a couple of these orange peppers. These are Etuda peppers. I don't know if I say that right. These are just an orange bell pepper. They are really gorgeous. And the skin is like a pretty good texture as far as like the crunch. So these are really nice. I'll be growing these again. Also nearby I have these. These are Ajvarski peppers. And they are actually my favorite sweet pepper to grow right now. They get really sweet. The flesh is like thick and juicy, which makes them just really great as a sweet pepper. They're maybe not as great if you like to do stuffed bell peppers because of the shape, but like everything else about them is pretty ideal. I would say the size and just the hardiness and the amount of production. You can see I have 6 beautiful peppers on this plant, and I think I've already pulled 2, and this is just the first flush. So I really recommend these peppers. I like them a lot. And for those keeping up with whatever pepper disease I've got, you can still see it coming in. This is what it looks like as it starts, and then as it progresses the leaves will turn worse and worse looking until they eventually fall off, and that is why these plants look really bare as it's going down, and I still haven't figured out the cause of that. But I notice every week the new foliage looks fine. It's putting on new peppers just fine. So even though it's kind of awful and probably hurting the like total production I could get, it's not really killing the crop entirely. And so, I mean, it is frustrating, but it's definitely not been the end of the world. And the fact that I can't figure out what's going on, it's not that big of a deal. Of course, as soon as I do figure out what's going on, I will be telling you guys and talking about how I hopefully eventually fix it. If we keep on walking down this way, I have some hot peppers here at the end. My jigsaw peppers, which make this beautiful variegated foliage. Oh, I'm sorry, these aren't jigsaw. These are fish peppers. Jigsaws also have a beautiful variegated foliage, but the fish peppers make these cute little stripy peppers. Let me see, I think this one I can pull. This is what they look like ripe. They're really nice, like hot chili to throw into stuff like curries. My Tabasco crop is also starting to come in. These are Tabasco peppers. They grow straight up, and every year I make Tabasco sauce with these at home, which has been a big hit with everybody. I ferment it myself. You can check out my video on how I do that. I've had some people over the years comment that it's not real Tabasco sauce if I don't like age it for several years in oak barrel or something like that, but I think it's like pretty darn close, and it's accessible for somebody like me at home. So we came back out to the front of the row now, and we are coming down this side where the corn is and where this giant kale is. I kind of gave up trying to eat off of it because I have so much other produce coming in, and this is like the least of my worries as far as like things I care about. But the new leaves coming in are still really tender and beautiful and perfectly edible. So if you cared about that, this is like a great summer kale apparently. This is from the Experimental Farm Network. It was from a pack called Kaleidoscope Kale. And now I am ducking under my corn. Coming through here. Corn has not tasseled yet, but it is looking pretty healthy, continuing to grow up. These are from home saved seeds from last year. I got my corn seeds initially from a YouTube friend. I'll put their username here if you want to check them out. But basically it was not a particular variety, so I saved seeds and then segmented them by color, and I am in particular growing all of the red seeds, so we will see if that produces red corn for me. Walking forward from here, I still have to go around this ever-growing nasturtium bush towards the turnip jungle and all of my eggplants over here. I have started working my way into this by pulling turnips. They are doing really well, and I'm like grateful, but I'm also super annoyed that they're doing so well when I didn't even plant them on purpose, and it's the middle of summer and they're not supposed to be able to grow that well in the heat, but apparently they do. And I have not seen a single one of them go to seed, which is wild because usually heat triggers root vegetables like this to go to seed. And they've tasted fine too. So I've just been pulling them, roasting them up in the oven, and eating them, and then eventually I will be able to walk through here again. Getting to my eggplants right now is a little treacherous. Over here by the eggplants, by the turnips, competing with space is sweet potatoes and regular potatoes, which are still growing pretty strongly. I need to tell you guys about these purple potatoes that I grew. Some of y'all saw me harvest my first summer potatoes a few weeks ago, and I've been making like lots of potato things, and the mashed potatoes that I've made, not only do they turn this like lovely lavender purple when they're cooked, they seem to color change back to a darker purple when they cool off. And they can do this through multiple cycles because I will like microwave my leftover mashed potatoes over and over. And so they're like kind of like magic color changing potatoes, which I think is really cool. And I don't know the particular variety that I got because I just bought some from Lowe's, their little purple potato pack that you can buy. And that's all I know about them. I threw away the package because I didn't think that I would care that much. But yeah, they are gorgeous and so cool. These trellises really are just beautiful. This first one I have cucumbers and pie pumpkins over here. And the cucumbers, I've had so many that I've started letting them get big and make seeds for me. I really thought I planted white pickling cucumbers, but these are looking a lot like lemon cucumbers, except, I mean, they're turning yellow, but I thought lemon cucumbers would have been more like ball shaped instead of this like pickling cucumber shape. But I'm letting them make seeds, and I'm maybe gonna tear out these vines because they don't look so great and plant some new ones and have fresh cucumbers come up as the weather starts cooling off around here. So this next trellis back is the noodle bean trellis, and the little tendrils are starting to overflow. I've been picking noodle beans pretty much every single day. I try to pick them when they're about this big. They've just barely started to bulge out with the beans inside. And if you wait too long to harvest your noodle beans, let me see if I can find one that is a little bit too big. Oh yeah, down here. So these are a little big, and once they get this big, the skin starts getting a little leathery, not as tasty to eat. But as I said last week, the beans actually are really great and edible as dried beans as well. And these things are so productive that you can easily harvest from like a trellis this size enough beans to make it worth it to grow them for both fresh beans and dried beans, in my opinion. Down this last row in the shade of the tree are some hot peppers and zinnias. I have a lemon basil right here that has been really great for picking for fresh tea, and it goes pretty well in pesto as well, but not as like the main basil in pesto. Zinnias are one of my favorite flowers to grow because they just keep making fresh blooms all summer. And so even though you can see some of them are dying off, there are fresh ones coming in, and it just adds a beautiful pop of color. I think I could have planted them a little more densely, but I wasn't sure how much space the peppers were going to end up taking up. So I'm just going to note that for next year. I've had pretty good luck with these peppers. They are growing slower than the ones over in the other section, and I think that's because they are shaded, but they're definitely growing. Oh, these are like everywhere, those little butterflies. They're definitely growing at an acceptable rate, and I feel like I'm making good use of this shaded space over here. Now if we keep coming down, we have a couple of bushing squash. These are golden acorn squash, and I think I'll probably end up harvesting these by next week, by the next time you guys see a garden tour. But it's looking really great. I haven't seen any sign of vine borers. I have seen a couple of squash bugs, but I'm doing a really good job staying on top of picking them and their eggs off of the leaves. Something I did this year that was a little different is I started my squash way later than I might normally. I entirely skipped the normal spring squash season because last year I had vine borers and they just destroyed everything anyway. So I waited until after the vine borers had supposedly gone through their life cycle, where they would need to bore into vines, and planted my squash after that, and that seems to have worked. But I am lucky in that in this area we have a long enough season to where I can grow stuff like winter squash and have it mature fully, even if I start it really late in the season. I do also want to give you guys a quick update on the mushrooms I've been growing in this straw. You can see it's starting to cave a little bit from the mushrooms just decaying it, and this one had golden oyster mushrooms on it. I got 3 flushes off of it, and I haven't seen much activity since. And then this one is snow oyster, and I hadn't gotten any from it at all, and I actually just noticed these. They're looking a little old, so probably not good to pull. But because the rain has been so sporadic, I think that that's really affecting these fruiting. Since we got rain yesterday, that's probably why this ended up fruiting, and I just didn't come out here to look soon enough. But my hypothesis is that I'll be able to get more straw and literally just like set it on top and have the mushroom colonize up through into the new straw, and just continue doing that and have these mushrooms grow here somewhat indefinitely. We will see. The wine cap mushrooms have not fruited yet, but there is good evidence of colonization of the mycelium in the wood chips. And so I'm pretty confident that I am going to get wine caps when the conditions become right for them in the fall. And it's been a long time since I've talked about these, but these are the logs that I inoculated with lion's mane. And they take a long time to colonize, but you can see, so these are covered in wax, which is why they look waxy, but underneath you can see the splotchiness of white. That is evidence of colonization of mycelium. That white is mycelium, and so that is a really good sign. And so sometime in the next few months there's a chance that I will get some fruiting out of these. But as with all things, it's not guaranteed, and we're gonna have to see. Lion's mane is one of those mushrooms that is a little bit harder to grow, and so I do not expect success on my very first try. It is pretty hot out here. I don't really want to go back out in the sun to show you guys the raised bed and the berry patch, but I can tell you they look approximately the same as they did last week, so if you want to see them you can go check out that video. I'm at the point in the season where these are perennials that are just kind of growing at a steady pace, not changing a whole lot from week to week, as opposed to these guys behind me that are growing like, it feels like a foot a week. It's crazy how much growth I see between every single garden tour. Thanks again to my Patreon supporters, and to those of you who cannot support me financially, I totally understand. If you just like and subscribe, that actually does help a ton to help my videos get to more people, some of whom might have the financial means to help support these videos even if you can't. So anything that you can do in that regard, I do really appreciate. Alrighty, that's it from me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, happy gardening!